Are you ready to uncover the hidden truths about what really happens when someone hurts you? Because here's the thing, we've all been there. That gut wrenching feeling when someone you trusted, someone you cared about completely blindsides you. Maybe it was a buddy who gossiped behind your back, a family member who let you down, or a partner who shattered your trust. Your first instinct probably is pure outrage, confusion, or just a deep, crushing despair. You might even find yourself staring at your reflection, asking, "Why me? What in the world did I do to deserve this, buddy?" But what if I told you that the best way to deal with that deep sting isn't by trying to hurt them back? What if the path to true healing and power isn't about getting even, but about something far more profound, something that makes them almost irrelevant in your emotional universe? We're talking about becoming so darn whole, so completely healed and so at peace that their actions just don't have the same hold over you anymore. This isn't just some feel-good fluff, folks. This is hardcore psychological truth straight from the brilliant mind of Carl Jung. Carl Jung, the renowned Swiss psychiatrist and founder of analytical psychology, didn't just explain why people hurt us. He actually laid out a roadmap, a way to transform that raw, painful experience into an unstoppable internal power. And in this video, we're going to walk through exactly how you can do that Jungian style. So grab a comfy blanket, maybe a Timmy's double-double for me, please, and let's dive deep, Part 1. The nature of hurt. What pain really reveals about you. When someone dings your emotional bumper, our immediate, almost primal reaction is often to point the finger. They did this to me. They're the problem. And that's totally natural. But in the fascinating world of Jungian psychology, pain is never just about what happened on the outside. It's always, and I mean always, an invitation to explore your inner world, to take a good hard look in the psychological mirror. According to Jung, those emotional wounds we carry aren't random attacks from the universe. Oh no, they are profound reflections of unresolved parts of ourselves. Think of it like this. Hurt isn't just something that's done to us. It's also something we unconsciously respond to, and often something we actually participate in. This isn't about blaming yourself for being hurt, not by a long shot. It's about recognizing that the way you experience that hurt, the intensity of it, is deeply personal. It's influenced by what's already simmering beneath your surface. Jung wasn't one to suggest we avoid emotional pain at all costs, like swerving to miss a pothole on the Trans-Canada Highway. Quite the opposite, actually. He believed that pain often signals the very beginning of an inward journey, a powerful summons to confront the stuff in your unconscious that you've been avoiding. Pain in the Jungian sense points directly towards your shadow, those disowned parts of your psyche that you've shoved into the basement of your mind because they seemed unacceptable or too messy. What truly hurts us reveals exactly where we're still split, still divided, still feeling a bit unwhole, and that, my friends, is the real starting line for true transformation. Pain isn't just an unpleasant sensation, it's a mirror of your psyche. So to truly get a handle on the psychological nature of hurt, Jung would first ask you to pause, take a deep breath, and consider, what exactly does this pain say about you? Now, this isn't about blaming yourself, remember. It's about a deeply reflective inquiry. When you feel that sharp sting, ask yourself, who inside me is actually being hurt? Is it your ego, that part of you that's all about pride and image? Is it your sense of fairness, feeling like someone cut in line when it was clearly your turn? Or is it perhaps your tender, vulnerable inner child who just wants to feel safe and loved? The ego and the shattered illusion of control. Your ego, that conscious part of you that navigates the world, often believes it's totally in control, like the captain of a mighty icebreaker. But when someone wounds us, that illusion of control can be completely shattered, leaving us feeling adrift. Suddenly, emotions we thought we had neatly tucked away, anger, profound sadness, shame, even raw rage, come rushing in like a rogue wave. Jung would argue that this emotional flood isn't the enemy, not at all. It's the message. It's your unconscious mind using hurt as a language, shouting, "Hey, there's something important here that you absolutely must see. Something you've been suppressing, rejecting, or just plain neglecting." Think of it like a bruise. If someone accidentally bumps your arm and it hurts unusually bad, that sudden disproportionate pain signals that your arm was already bruised, or maybe you bumped it on the fridge door earlier and didn't even notice. The same principle applies emotionally. When someone's careless words cut you deeply, it might be less about what they actually said and more about the fact that the emotional wound already existed within you. Their words simply acted like a fresh poke, reopening it. The ego's default response to hurt, Jung believed, is resistance. It views vulnerability as a weakness, like showing up to a hockey game without all your gear. When we're hurt, the ego immediately demands retribution, justice, or at the very least control. "I am not going to let anyone treat me this way again," the ego screams, stomping its foot. But beneath that righteous rage is often a deeper, more primal fear, the fear of being seen as small or unworthy or utterly powerless. This is precisely why so many people confuse genuine strength with retaliation. They genuinely believe that getting revenge is the only way to reclaim their dignity, to feel important again. But Jung taught that the true work, the deep, meaningful work, lies not in punishing the other person. It's about understanding why you gave them the power to wound you so deeply in the first place. The ego itself isn't inherently bad, but it is undeniably defensive. It shields us from chaos, from ambiguity, from life's complexities. But hurt destabilizes the ego, and in doing so, it exposes the underlying psychic structure, your beliefs, your old wounds, your memories, your insecurities. And that foundational structure is where the real healing begins. The inner child and reactivated trauma, echoes from the past. A huge part of Jung's analytical psychology focuses on the idea of complexes. These are like emotional energy clusters, often tied to past experiences, especially from childhood. Imagine them as little emotional landmines buried in your psyche. When someone hurts you in the present, you might not just be reacting to them. You might actually be reacting to a complex that was activated from years, even decades ago. For example, let's say someone you know totally ignores your suggestion in a group meeting, and that makes you disproportionately angry or devastated, way more than the situation probably warrants. Jung would ask you, who was the first person that made you feel invisible? Often this question leads straight back to early caregivers or significant figures from your childhood. That searing pain you feel in the present, it isn't really about the current situation. It's about the unresolved grief, the lingering sense of abandonment, the feeling of being overlooked from your childhood. This is where the idea of the inner child beautifully intersects with Jung's work. The part of you that felt neglected or dismissed or rejected as a child still lives vividly within your psyche like a quiet echo. So when someone hurts you now, they might be unknowingly touching that very same wound from long ago. Revenge then becomes less about a response to the present moment and more about a desperate defense mechanism to protect that vulnerable child inside from feeling that agonizing pain all over again. But here's the kicker: healing doesn't come from external retaliation, from trying to get back at someone. It comes from repairing that inner child, from giving them the love, the validation, the fierce protection they never received back then. It's about nurturing that little one within like a protective parent, reassuring them that they are seen, they are worthy, and they are safe right here, right now. The projection mechanism. Are you reacting to them or to you? Jung's concept of projection is absolutely central to understanding why hurt cuts so deep. Projection, simply put, is when we disown a part of ourselves, something we find unacceptable or shameful, and then unconsciously see it in others. It's our psyche's sneaky way of externalizing what we simply cannot bear to acknowledge within our own being. It's like when you're driving in heavy fog. You think you see something way out there, but it's just your own breath on the windshield. When someone hurts you, Jung would strongly encourage you to ask, am I projecting something onto this person? Do they somehow remind me of a part of myself I just can't seem to accept? For example, imagine you're deeply hurt because someone calls you selfish. It might be because deep down you're absolutely terrified of being perceived as selfish. Perhaps you've gone out of your way for years, even to be overly generous, overly helpful, always saying yes to everyone, just to avoid facing your own genuine needs or desires. That accusation cuts so incredibly deep because it strikes right at an internal conflict, a tension within you that you haven't yet resolved. It's fascinating, isn't it? We often react most intensely not to complete strangers, but to people who sometimes unwittingly mirror back our own repressed or unacknowledged traits. This doesn't mean they're innocent bystanders, of course. It just means that they are in that moment acting as profound mirrors. And in Jung's profound view, every single mirror, even when it's painful, is a gift. It's an opportunity to see something about yourself that was previously hidden. It's like finding a hidden lake in the Canadian wilderness. It might be hard to get to, but what it reveals is breathtaking. Archetypes in the myth of the victim, stepping out of helplessness. In Jungian terms, many of us unconsciously adopt various archetypes in our emotional lives, like playing a character in a movie without realizing it. And one of the most common archetypes we fall into when we're hurt is the victim. The victim archetype fundamentally believes that life is inherently unfair, that people are cruel, and that suffering is just an inevitable part of the deal. And while identifying with this archetype can be temporarily comforting, after all, it absolves us of any responsibility, right? It also profoundly disempowers us. Jung would strongly encourage us to examine whether we're actually stuck in this victim role. Are we defining ourselves by our pain? Are we constantly waiting for someone else to rescue us, to apologize, or to make things right for us? The key here isn't to deny the pain you feel. Oh no. It's to avoid becoming identified with it. You are not your wound. You are the one who observes the wound, the one who can consciously choose what to do with it. This shift from being a victim to becoming your own healer is the profound work of individuation. It means stepping out of helplessness and into conscious choice. The person who hurt you may never ever change, but you absolutely can. And that's where your real power lies, right there. Emotional triggers as portals to the shadow. One of the core principles of Jungian depth psychology is the shadow, those unconscious parts of ourselves we reject, deny, or actively suppress. And guess what? When someone hurts us, it often uncannily reveals a shadow aspect we've been completely ignoring. For instance, if you're absolutely devastated because someone betrayed your trust, your immediate knee-jerk thought might be, I would never do that to someone I'm so loyal. But that very belief, that fierce internal declaration, might actually be what's blocking you from seeing your own subtle manipulations, your own moments of self-betrayal, or even times when you've been less than honest with yourself. That person in their hurtful action might have unintentionally forced you to confront a truth about yourself that you didn't want to see. Now, let's be super clear. This is not about blaming yourself for someone else's cruelty. Absolutely not. It's about using the event, as painful as it is, as a powerful lens to see more deeply into your own unconscious. Every single trigger you experience is a teacher. Every strong emotional reaction is an incredible opportunity to ask, what unhealed part of me is speaking right now? What is this trying to show me? It's like a beacon in the dark, pointing you exactly where you need to go for your own growth. The invitation to consciousness, sitting in your power. Jung deeply believed that the ultimate goal of the human psyche isn't just to be happy, although that's nice, eh? No, the ultimate goal is wholeness. And wholeness, my friends, requires that we integrate everything: the light and the dark, the love and the pain, the rage and the compassion. When someone hurts you, your unconscious isn't trying to punish you. It's actually inviting you to wake up. It's nudging you to step back, to observe, to feel everything that's coming up without being completely consumed by it. This, believe it or not, is the beginning of real consciousness. Not denial, not dissociation, but radical, brave presence. The best revenge, in Jung's profound view, begins right here. It starts with the courage to sit in your pain, to not run from it, to not distract yourself with endless scrolling or overworking or chasing external validation. It begins with the simple yet profound act of asking your pain, what are you trying to teach me? That right there is the first real act of power. And in many, many cases, it's the very first act of true freedom. It's like finding your true north on a compass, a steady guide even in the blizzard of emotions. Stay tuned, because next up we're diving into part 2, shadow projection, why they hurt you in the first place. And trust me, this is where things get even more fascinating. You don't want to miss it, eh? Okay, welcome back, friends. We just wrapped up a pretty deep dive into part 1, the nature of hurt, looking at how pain isn't just something that happens to us, but also a profound mirror reflecting our own inner landscape, our unhealed complexes, and our inner child's whispers. Hopefully that got you thinking a bit differently about those emotional bruises, eh? Now we're going to pivot a little and tackle the other side of the coin, part 2, shadow projection, why they hurt you in the first place. This is where Jung's insights become incredibly powerful, not to excuse anyone's bad behavior, but to help us understand it, process it, and ultimately liberate ourselves from its grip. So you've been hurt, and it stings, but what was going on with them? Why did they choose to lash out, to betray, to dismiss, or to abandon? Jung would argue that in many, many cases, especially when the cruelty seems baffling or disproportionate, the real culprit isn't simply malice. It's often something far more insidious and ironically pathetic: shadow projection. Remember the concept of the shadow from our last chat. It's not some spooky evil part of you like a monster under the bed. No, the shadow is simply everything you've disowned, rejected, or suppressed within yourself. It's those parts of your personality that don't fit with your conscious self-image, the traits you deem unacceptable, shameful, or just plain inconvenient. Maybe it's your fiery temper, your deep-seated insecurities, your profound need for validation, your ambition, your perceived laziness, your sensitivity, or even your raw, unbridled creativity. Anything that was deemed bad or too much by your parents, your teachers, your community, your hockey coach, or even just by yourself often gets shoved into the shadow locked away in the unconscious. And here's the tricky bit: what you disown doesn't just disappear. Oh no. It lurks there in the background like a forgotten basement in an old farmhouse waiting for an opportunity to emerge. And one of the most common ways it surfaces through projection. Projection is an unconscious psychological process where you attribute your own unacknowledged qualities, feelings, or impulses onto someone else. It's like having dirt on your own glasses, but thinking the entire world is dusty. You see your own shadow in the other person, and because you haven't integrated that part of yourself, you judge it, you fear it, or you even lash out at it in the other person. So when someone hurts you, Jung would invite you to consider this profound possibility: they might be unconsciously projecting their own disowned shadow material onto you. They see something in you, or think they see something in you, that they simply cannot tolerate within themselves. It's like a defensive reflex, a desperate attempt to externalize their inner turmoil. Let's unpack this a bit, Imagine someone who's incredibly critical and judgmental of others. They might constantly point out your flaws, your mistakes, your perceived weaknesses. What could be happening here? Well, through the lens of shadow projection, this person might be deeply, deeply insecure about their own flaws. They might have an inner critic that's absolutely relentless. And because they cannot tolerate that perceived weakness or imperfection within themselves, they project it outward onto you. By criticizing you, they temporarily get a break from the relentless self-criticism within. It's a very common, albeit damaging, defense mechanism. They're essentially saying, "It's not me who's flawed, it's you." Or consider someone who accuses you of being selfish even when you feel you've been incredibly generous. This accusation might cut deep, but if we look at it through Jung's eyes, it's possible that they are actually struggling with their own repressed selfishness. Maybe they constantly give to the point of exhaustion because they believe that's the only way to be loved or seen. They've disowned their own legitimate needs and desires, labeling them selfish. So when you express a boundary or prioritize your own well-being or simply say no, something many Canadians struggle with, let's be honest, because we're so keen on being polite and accommodating, it triggers that repressed selfishness within them, and they project it onto you. You become the container for their own unacknowledged urges. Why you become the target? It's often the people who are the most authentic, the most vibrant, the most genuinely grounded, who become targets of projection. Why? Because when you're showing up as your true self, you become a living, breathing mirror. You reflect back to others the very qualities they've either repressed or longed for within themselves. Think about it: if someone is deeply insecure about their own perceived mediocrity, and you are confidently pursuing your dreams, that confidence can feel like a direct threat. It's not that you're trying to make them feel bad. It's that your very presence, your very authenticity, shines a light on their own disowned potential, on their own unfulfilled desires. And rather than doing the inner work to integrate those parts of themselves, it's easier and far more convenient to attack the mirror, to try and diminish you, to make you seem less so they don't have to confront their own inner landscape. This happens all the time in families and friendships and even in workplaces. Imagine you finally decide to chase that dream of opening your own boutique coffee shop after years of talking about it, and a close friend who's been stuck in a job they hate for ages suddenly starts making snide remarks about how risky it is or how everyone thinks they can make a fancy latte these days. Their comments aren't really about your business acumen. They're a projection of their own unfulfilled dreams, their own fear of failure, their own resentment at their inaction. your courage inadvertently highlights their timidity. The envy factor, a toxic cocktail. One of the most potent and insidious forms of shadow projection is born from envy. Jung understood envy not just as simple jealousy, but as a deep, often unconscious resentment towards someone else's perceived success, happiness, or inner wholeness. And what makes it so toxic is that it's usually mixed with admiration, which makes it incredibly confusing for the person being envied. When someone envies you, they see something in you that they desperately want but feel they cannot have, or that they believe you don't deserve. And because they haven't done the inner work to cultivate that quality within themselves, be it confidence, creativity, joy, or even genuine peace, their unconscious mind blames you for their lack. This is a classic shadow projection. My suffering is your fault because you have what I want. This toxic mix can manifest in incredibly subtle ways like passive-aggressive comments, backhanded compliments, subtle undermining, or constantly finding fault with you. They might secretly rejoice in your setbacks and feel diminished by your triumphs. It's not always outright malice, but a quiet, constant chipping away born from their own internal deficit. And the more authentic and joyful you become, the more intensely they might project their own inner void onto you. They want to pull you down, not because they dislike you, but because your light highlights their own shadow. The pain of being misunderstood. Why arguing is futile. Being on the receiving end of projection is incredibly painful and deeply frustrating. Imagine trying to explain your genuine intentions to someone who is convinced you're selfish, arrogant, or lazy when you know deep down you're not. It's like trying to reason with someone who's staring at a blank wall and insisting they see a vibrant mural. You can present all the facts, all the evidence, all the heartfelt explanations, but it just won't land. Why? Because you're not arguing with them. You're arguing with their shadow. Their perception of you isn't based on reality. It's based on their own unprocessed, unconscious content. Their accusations are not really about you. They are a desperate attempt to maintain their inner equilibrium by disowning something within themselves. It's like trying to convince someone they don't have a headache when they're convinced they do. It's a battle you simply cannot win because you're fighting on a battlefield that doesn't exist in your shared reality. This realization is both liberating and heartbreaking. Liberating because it frees you from the endless draining cycle of trying to justify yourself. Heartbreaking because it means that true understanding, genuine empathy is impossible as long as the other person is lost in their own projection. You cannot and should not take responsibility for someone else's internal experience. You can only take responsibility for your own, rejecting the projection, holding your ground. So what happens when you finally realize you're being projected upon? When you recognize that their accusations are more about them than about you, you essentially reject the projection. You refuse to carry their shadow for them. This doesn't mean you become arrogant or dismissive. It means you understand consciously and unconsciously that their emotional baggage is theirs, not yours. This can be incredibly empowering for you, but often it's very unsettling for the projector. Because when you refuse to carry their shadow, it boomerangs right back to them. And suddenly they are forced to confront the very parts of themselves they've been desperately trying to avoid. This can often lead to an escalation of hostility. They might get angrier, more defensive, even more accusatory. Why? Because you're challenging their unconscious coping mechanism. You're threatening their fragile sense of inner stability. This is why establishing strong psychological boundaries is absolutely essential. You're not being mean or cold by setting boundaries. You're being psychologically healthy. You're protecting your inner space, refusing to be a dumping ground for someone else's unresolved issues. It's like putting up a no trespassing sign on your inner property. You can empathize with their pain, but you don't have to carry it. You can observe their shadow, but you don't have to own it. Recognizing your own projections, the path to integration. Now, here's the crucial part. Jung emphasized that understanding projection isn't just about seeing it in others. It's even more vital to recognize your own projections. Because if someone else is projecting their shadow onto you, you are undoubtedly projecting your shadow onto others. That's just how the human psyche works. Think about the people you judge most harshly, or the qualities you find most infuriating in others. Do you absolutely despise arrogance? It might be because you have a deep, unacknowledged desire for power or recognition yourself, but you've repressed it because it felt wrong or un-Canadian to be too self-promoting. Do you get intensely frustrated by someone's neediness? Perhaps you too have profound unmet needs that you've pushed down, believing you must always be strong and independent. Recognizing your own projections is the first step towards shadow integration. It's the courageous act of turning that judgmental finger back towards yourself, not with shame, but with curiosity. It's about asking, what is this strong reaction telling me about my unconscious? This is where true self-awareness blooms. This is where you start to reclaim the parts of yourself you've exiled, bringing them back into the light of consciousness. And as you integrate your own shadow, the world around you actually starts to look different. The faults you saw in others might soften or even disappear because they were never really there in the first place. They were just reflections of you. Relationships as shadow laboratories. Jung believed that our most intense relationships, especially the ones that bring us the most joy and the most pain, are often our greatest teachers. He called them shadow laboratories. They are the crucible in which our unacknowledged parts are brought to the surface, where our complexes are activated, and where we have the profound opportunity to integrate more of our true selves. The person who hurt you, they might have been an unwitting agent of your own psychological growth. They opened a wound, yes, but in doing so, they also opened a portal to a deeper understanding of yourself. They showed you where you still needed to heal, where you still needed to reclaim your power, and where your boundaries needed to be stronger than a fortified igloo. This perspective doesn't absolve the person who hurt you of responsibility for their actions. Absolutely not. But it shifts the focus of your healing. Instead of waiting for them to apologize or to change you, take the reins of your own inner work. You stop seeing them as a villain and start seeing them as a teacher, perhaps a harsh one, but a teacher nonetheless. And that, my friends, is a powerful, powerful shift. Shadow work as psychological self-defense. So how do you practically engage in this shadow work as a form of psychological self-defense? It starts with mindful observation. When you feel a strong emotional reaction to someone, pause. Instead of immediately blaming them or shutting down, ask, what specifically did they do or say that triggered me? Be precise. What emotion is coming up for me? Anger, sadness, fear, shame. Have I felt this emotion before in a similar way? When this often points to a complex or old wound, what quality am I seeing in them that I absolutely despise or envy? Is there any part of me, however small, that might contain a similar quality or a longing for it? This requires radical honesty. What belief about myself or the world is being challenged by this interaction? This isn't easy work, and it's certainly not a quick fix. It's a lifelong journey, like cultivating a beautiful garden in the Canadian climate. It requires patience, persistence, and a willingness to get your hands dirty. But it's the most empowering work you will ever do, because when you integrate your shadow, you reclaim your own power. You stop reacting to the world from a place of unconscious defense, and you start responding from a place of conscious choice. You become less susceptible to projection, less easily manipulated, and far more grounded in your own truth. You become the alchemist of your own pain, transforming it into wisdom. Next up, we're going to tackle part 3, the illusion of revenge. Why ordinary revenge fails. We've talked about the hurt and why they might have done it. Now let's explore why getting even is often the worst thing you can do for yourself according to Jung. You absolutely don't want to miss this, so hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next section. All right, welcome back, amazing people. We've just pulled out of part 2, shadow projection, where we unpacked why people might have hurt you in the first place. Often it's not about you, but about their own unacknowledged inner shadows. Pretty wild stuff, eh? Now let's get into the nitty-gritty of what we really want to do when we're hurt. Get even. But what if that urge, that burning desire for payback, is actually a mirage? Let's dive into part 3, the illusion of revenge. Why ordinary revenge fails. Part 3, the illusion of revenge. Why ordinary revenge fails. When you've been truly hurt, betrayed, or wronged, there's an almost universal primal urge that kicks in, isn't there? It's that deep guttural yearning for revenge. You want them to feel what you felt to suffer, as you suffered to somehow pay for what they did. It's an itch that feels like it needs to be scratched, a cosmic balance that feels like it must be restored. You might spend hours replaying this scenario in your head, coming up with the perfect witty retort, the ultimate public shaming, or the most crushing setback you could possibly inflict upon them. It feels like the only way to finally get closure, to reclaim your power, to feel like you won. But Carl Jung, with his profound understanding of the human psyche, would gently yet firmly tell you that this kind of ordinary revenge is a complete illusion. It's an egoic fantasy, a siren song that promises satisfaction but delivers only more entanglement. Jung saw it as a self-defeating impulse, a path that leads you further away from wholeness, not towards it. He wasn't suggesting we become doormats or ignore injustice, far from it. He simply understood that the kind of revenge that genuinely liberates us is profoundly internal, not external. It has absolutely nothing to do with them. The egoic fantasy, a hamster wheel of pain. Think about it, that elaborate revenge fantasy you're cooking up. It's often born out of a desperate need to undo the pain, to reestablish a sense of control that was snatched away. The ego, that part of you that craves power and recognition, tells you, if only I can make them suffer, then I will feel better. Then I will be healed. But this is a fundamental psychological miscalculation. It's like trying to put out a house fire by starting another smaller fire in the backyard. It simply doesn't work. When you invest your precious emotional energy, your mental real estate, and your valuable time in planning someone else's downfall, you're not liberating yourself. You're actually keeping them intimately connected to your psyche. You're tethered to them by the very anger and resentment you wish to project back onto them. It's a mental hamster wheel spinning endlessly, but getting absolutely nowhere. You might feel a fleeting sense of satisfaction if your plan works, but it's quickly replaced by an empty echo, or even worse, a lingering sense of unease. Because the true wound, the one that lives inside you, remains unaddressed. The external act of revenge does nothing to mend the internal fracture. It's like trying to fix a leaky roof by painting the exterior walls. It might look different, but the problem persists, becoming what you hate. The dark mirror. One of the most chilling truths about revenge from a Jungian perspective is that by pursuing it, you often risk becoming what you hate. If someone acted cruelly, deceitfully, or manipulatively towards you, and your response is to embody those very same qualities, where does that leave you? You've essentially taken on the very shadow you despise. Imagine a friend who betrayed a secret, causing you immense social embarrassment. Your first thought might be to spread an even more damaging rumor about them. If you act on that impulse, you might find yourself becoming just as gossipy, just as deceitful, just as willing to hurt another person's reputation as the one who hurt you. You've internalized their negative behavior, making it a part of your own psychic landscape. This isn't liberation. It's a subtle, insidious form of self-contamination. You've allowed their toxicity to infect your own inner well-being. It's like wrestling with a skunk. No matter who wins, you're both left smelling terrible, eh? This is why Jung emphasized that true growth involves integrating our own shadow rather than projecting it or mimicking it. When we mirror the very behavior we detest, we solidify that shadow within ourselves, making it harder to become the whole conscious individual we aspire to be. The cycle of harm continues, but now you are an active participant, a perpetuator of the very thing you condemn. The addictive cycle of retaliation, a false sense of power. The pursuit of retaliation can become incredibly addictive. Each small act of getting back at someone can provide a temporary rush, a fleeting sense of power and control. It's like a sugar high. It feels good for a moment, but then you crash, leaving you feeling worse than before. This false sense of power is incredibly misleading. True power, according to Jung, is internal, self-generated, and independent of external circumstances or the actions of others. Power derived from making someone else suffer is inherently unstable, conditional, and ultimately disempowering. It keeps you looking outward, focused on their actions, their responses, their suffering, rather than redirecting that energy inward towards your own healing and growth. It's a distraction from the real work. It prevents you from tapping into your true reservoir of strength, which lies in your capacity for self-awareness, compassion, and conscious choice. Karma Jungian style. The psychological law, not cosmic payback. Many people talk about karma as some kind of cosmic scoreboard where every wrong act eventually gets its comeuppance. While Jung certainly believed in the interconnectedness of all things, his understanding of karma was far more nuanced and psychological. It wasn't about a vengeful universe getting even. It was about the psychological law of cause and effect. For Jung, if you operate from a place of anger, resentment, and a desire to harm, you will inevitably create more anger, resentment, and harm within your own psyche. You internalize the very negative energy you project outward. So in a very real psychological sense, the karma of revenge isn't that something bad happens to them. It's that something corrosive happens to you. You pay the price not because a cosmic judge is tallying points, but because you are living out the psychological consequences of your own choices and intentions. You might get your revenge, but you also perpetuate your own suffering. The eye for an eye myth, a primitive response to an evolved soul. The ancient adage, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, reflects a primitive tribal understanding of justice. It's about direct reciprocal punishment. And while it might have served a purpose in ancient societies to prevent escalating feuds, Jung would argue that for an evolved consciousness, it's deeply limiting and ultimately destructive. An eye for an eye leaves the whole world blind, as Gandhi famously pointed out. From a Jungian perspective, it leaves your soul blind. It prevents you from developing higher capacities like compassion, understanding, and the ability to transcend your immediate egoic reactions. It keeps you trapped in a cycle of reactivity where your inner state is constantly dictated by someone else's actions. True psychic wholeness involves moving beyond these primitive responses, choosing conscious generative action over unconscious destructive reaction. It means recognizing that you are capable of a far more sophisticated and empowering response than simply mirroring harm, the inversion of power, from being affected to affecting yourself. Here's a crucial Jungian principle. The power that someone has over you, the ability they have to wound you, is directly proportional to how much you allow them to define your inner state. When you seek external revenge, you give them even more power because your peace of mind remains dependent on their suffering. The inversion of power then is realizing that the true power lies not in making them pay, but in taking back your own emotional sovereignty. It's about transforming the impact they had on you into profound wisdom that strengthens you. It's about using their negative action as the raw material for your own growth. Instead of letting their actions continue to pull you down, you use them as a launch pad to elevate yourself. For example, someone might have betrayed your trust in a business deal, costing you a lot of money and causing immense stress. The revenge might be to destroy their reputation, but the Jungian inversion of power would be to use that experience to become incredibly discerning in future partnerships, to strengthen your contracts, to learn to trust your own intuition more fiercely. You transform the experience from something that broke you into something that built you brick by brick into an even stronger, wiser version of yourself. Your win isn't their loss. Your win is your own unshakable integrity and resilience. Revenge delays. True. Healing. The internal work. Perhaps the most significant reason ordinary revenge fails from a Jungian standpoint is that it fundamentally delays true healing. When your focus is outward, on what they did, what they deserve, how you can make them suffer, your attention is diverted from the real work that needs to be done, the internal work. True healing happens when you process your emotions, integrate your shadow, nurture your inner child, and consciously choose a new narrative for your life. It involves deep self-reflection, perhaps therapy, meditation, creative expression, or simply spending quiet time in nature like a long, reflective walk in the woods or by a calm lake. Revenge, by its very nature, is an external act. It's a distraction from the messy, uncomfortable, yet ultimately liberating work of self-transformation. It's like constantly scratching an itch that needs to be treated with a salve. You're only providing temporary relief, not genuine healing. The shadow side of justice. Beware of moral inflation. We often equate revenge with justice, but Jung would caution us to be wary of the shadow side of justice. True justice for Jung was about psychological balance, inner coherence, and living in alignment with one's authentic self. It wasn't about punishing others from a place of moral superiority or inflated ego. When we pursue revenge, especially under the guise of justice, we can fall prey to moral inflation. We convince ourselves that we are utterly righteous and they are utterly evil. While there are certainly real wrongs in the world, this kind of black and white thinking prevents us from seeing the full spectrum of humanity, including our own capacity for shadow. It keeps us stuck in a dualistic mindset rather than moving towards wholeness where we can hold complexity and paradox. It's like declaring yourself the only good hockey player on the ice when really everyone has their moments of brilliance and their moments of fumbling the puck. Forgiveness Jungian style, an act of internal liberation. So if revenge fails, what's the alternative? Jung's answered, though he rarely used the word forgiveness in a simplistic religious sense, points towards a profound act of internal liberation. For Jung, forgiveness wasn't about letting the other person off the hook. It was about severing the psychic ties that bind you to their negative actions. It was about releasing yourself from the internal prison of resentment, bitterness, and the addictive cycle of retaliation. It's an act of radical self-compassion, not an act of condoning their behavior. It's recognizing that holding on to hatred hurts you far more than it hurts them. It's choosing your own peace over the illusion of external control. This doesn't mean you forget or that you suddenly trust them again. It simply means you free up your own precious life force, redirecting it away from them and back into your own healing, your own growth, your own creative expression. It means realizing that the ultimate punishment for them might simply be your complete, peaceful, and profound indifference. That's a game changer, eh? Now we've walked through the painful nature of hurt, the tricky dance of shadow projection, and why traditional revenge is a dead end. Are you ready for the good stuff? Because next up, we're diving into the absolute core of Jung's wisdom. Part 4. The Alchemy of Transformation. Transmuting pain into power. This is where we learn how to turn lead into gold, emotionally speaking. Get ready to truly shift your perspective. Don't go anywhere. Okay, welcome back, my incredible viewers. We've just navigated the tricky terrain of Part 3. The illusion of revenge, where we discovered that trying to get even often keeps us stuck in a painful loop, preventing true healing. If you missed that, go back and give it a watch. It's a real eye-opener, eh? Now we're at the culmination, the grand finale, the most exciting part of our journey together. Part 4. The Alchemy of Transformation. Transmuting pain into power. This is where we shift from understanding what happens when you're hurt to actively transforming that hurt into something incredibly potent and beautiful within yourself. Part 4. The Alchemy of Transformation. Transmuting pain into power. So we've talked about how pain is inevitable in life, like winter arriving every year. No one gets to skip it. But here's the game changer. According to Carl Jung, pain isn't just something you endure. It's actually the most incredible raw material for profound personal transformation. Think of it like a base metal. Lead, maybe. On its own, it's heavy, dull, and not particularly valuable. But in the hands of an alchemist with the right process, the right heat, the right intention, that lead can be transmuted into gleaming precious gold. Jung saw the process of psychological growth, particularly through suffering, as a form of alchemy. He wasn't talking about turning actual lead into actual gold in a lab. He was talking about turning our psychological lead, our pain, our trauma, our shadow, our unresolved complexes, into our psychological gold wisdom, wholeness, resilience, and conscious power. It's about transforming the very essence of your being from the inside out. This isn't just about feeling better. It's about becoming more of who you truly are. Alchemy begins in the dark. The Nigredo stage. Every alchemical process, Jung taught, begins with the Nigredo, the blackening. This is the stage of darkness, decomposition, and dissolution. Psychologically, this is when you're plunged into the depths of your pain. It's the grief, the anger, the confusion, the despair. It's the feeling that everything is falling apart, that your old self is disintegrating. It's uncomfortable, it's messy, and it's often what we try desperately to avoid. We'll distract ourselves with endless tasks, binge watching shows, chasing new relationships, or just staying busy, anything to avoid sitting with the raw, uncomfortable feelings. But true alchemy, true transformation demands that you enter this darkness willingly. You must sit with your pain, not run from it. You must allow yourself to feel everything, the fear, the anger, the profound sadness, without judgment, without trying to fix it immediately, without trying to blame. It's like allowing yourself to stand in the eye of a powerful storm, feeling its immense force rather than trying to outrun it. This isn't passive suffering, it's active presence, it's courageous surrender. This is the phase of deep introspection where you allow the emotional turmoil to simply be. You're observing it, witnessing it, rather than being consumed by it. It's the hard work of pulling weeds out of a garden. It's not pretty, but it's necessary for new growth. This raw, unfiltered confrontation with your pain is incredibly powerful because it exposes the illusions you've been living under, the masks you've been wearing, and the parts of yourself you've disowned. It's a stripping away, leaving you bare, but also real. And from that authentic, raw place, transformation truly begins. Symbols and dreams, whispers from the unconscious. As you sit in this darkness, as you engage with your Nigredo, your unconscious mind will often begin to communicate with you in its own language through symbols and dreams. Jung believed that dreams are direct messages from your deep inner wisdom, offering guidance, revealing hidden truths, and pointing the way forward. They can show you the source of your pain, the shadow aspects you need to integrate, or even the potential for healing that lies within you. So pay attention to your dreams. Keep a dream journal by your bedside, like a little notebook you'd use to jot down ideas for your next big adventure. Even if they seem strange or nonsensical, write them down. Look for recurring themes, powerful images, or strong emotional tones. These are pieces of your internal puzzle clues from your inner alchemist. Beyond dreams, notice the symbols that repeatedly show up in your waking life. Are there certain animals that keep appearing, certain colors, certain metaphors or stories that resonate deeply? These are not random. They are the unconscious speaking to you, offering a pathway to understanding and integration. For instance, if you keep seeing images of broken glass, it might symbolize a shattered sense of self that needs to be carefully put back together. Or if a strong, resilient animal like a bear keeps appearing in your thoughts, it might be your inner strength, your wildness, your protective instinct trying to surface. By engaging with these symbols, you're not just intellectualizing your pain, you're connecting with it on a deeper, more archetypal level, allowing your soul to speak its truth. From victim to alchemist, radical self-accountability. The pivotal shift in this alchemical process is moving from being a victim to becoming the alchemist of your own life. This requires radical self-accountability. It's not about blaming yourself for being hurt. Remember, we've been very clear about that. It's about taking full ownership of your response to the hurt. It's realizing that while you didn't choose the external event, you absolutely have the power to choose what you do with it. This means consciously saying, okay, this happened. It sucked. It hurt. But I refuse to let it define me. I refuse to let it keep me stuck. I will use this as fuel for my own transformation. It's a powerful declaration of sovereignty. It's deciding that you are the captain of your own ship, even after a massive storm, and you are steering it towards healing, not shipwreck. Actionable steps here include Journaling extensively. Pour out all the raw emotion onto the page. No filters, no judgment. Mindful self-inquiry. Ask yourself those tough Jungian questions we discussed. What part of me is reacting? What is this trying to show me about my own shadow? Setting fierce boundaries, not just with others, but with yourself. No more allowing negative thought patterns to run wild. No more self-abandonment. Seeking support from a Jungian analyst, a trusted therapist, or a wise mentor. You don't have to do this alone. It's like embarking on a challenging hike. Sometimes having an experienced guide makes all the difference. This shift from victim to alchemist is the ultimate act of reclaiming your power. You're no longer waiting for an apology for justice or for them to change. You're becoming your own source of healing, your own source of validation, your own source of peace. And that, my friends, is an unshakable power stronger than any external force. The fire of the inner furnace. Emotions as crucibles. In alchemy, the base metals are subjected to intense heat in a crucible. Psychologically, this fire is the intense emotional energy that arises from your pain. It's the anger, the rage, the sorrow, the despair. These emotions are not to be feared or suppressed. Instead, they are the very fuel for your transformation. Think of your emotions as raw energy. If they're left unchecked, they can burn you. But if they're contained within the crucible of your conscious awareness and channeled intentionally, they become incredibly potent. Your anger, when transmuted, can become a powerful force for setting boundaries and advocating for yourself. Your sorrow, when fully felt, can open your heart to deeper compassion for yourself and for others. Your fear, when understood, can become a guidepost showing you where you need to cultivate courage. This isn't about just feeling your feelings and wallowing in them. It's about feeling them, fully acknowledging their intensity, and then consciously directing that energy. It's like a controlled burn in the forest. It might look destructive, but it clears out the old growth, making way for new life. The fire of your emotional intensity, when embraced rather than resisted, burns away the dross of old conditioning, old beliefs, and old patterns that no longer serve you. It purifies your essence, leaving you lighter, clearer, and more aligned with your authentic self. The rebirth of the self. The albedo stage and individuation. Following the dark Negredo alchemists sought the albedo, the whitening. Psychologically, this is the stage of purification, clarity, and the emergence of something new. After you've bravely confronted your darkness and sat with your pain, a profound shift occurs. The intensity begins to subside. You start to see things with new eyes, like the first crisp, clear morning after a heavy snowstorm. This is the rebirth of the self. You emerge from the crucible not as a fixed or better version of your old self, but as a new, more integrated, and more conscious individual. The choices you make now are no longer dictated by old wounds or unconscious reactions. They are born from a place of clarity, inner wisdom, and conscious alignment with your true self. This is where you reclaim your power, not just a temporary sense of control, but a deep, abiding inner strength that is independent of external circumstances. This entire process is Jung's concept of individuation in action. You are becoming a whole, undivided being, integrating all those parts of yourself you once denied, including the parts that were hurt. You are becoming your authentic self, no longer fragmented, no longer a collection of disconnected pieces. This doesn't mean life is suddenly perfect or that you'll never feel pain again, but it means you are equipped to navigate life's challenges from a place of profound inner resourcefulness and resilience. You're like a seasoned wilderness guide now. You know how to weather the storms, find your way through dense forests, and trust your inner compass. Creative transmutation, giving form to your pain. One of the most potent ways to transmute pain into power is through creative expression. Jung profoundly understood the healing power of the creative process, whether it's writing, painting, sculpting, playing music, dancing, or even just building something with your hands. Giving form to your inner turmoil is a powerful act of alchemy. When you create, you externalize your internal chaos. You give it shape, color, sound, or words. This process allows you to process emotions that might be too overwhelming to simply talk about. It allows you to transform raw, unformed pain into something tangible, something that can be observed, understood, and ultimately released. Imagine writing a poem about your betrayal, or painting an abstract piece that expresses your rage, or composing a song that captures your grief. This isn't just a coping mechanism, it's an act of deep psychological integration. You're taking your pain, your lead, and consciously shaping it into a new form, a new expression of your being. In doing so, you reclaim agency. You're no longer a passive recipient of suffering. You become an active creator, transforming your experience into a source of beauty, insight, or connection. Your art becomes your voice, your power, your testament to resilience. And that, my friends, is an incredibly empowering process. Pain is a portal to spiritual awakening. Finally, Jung often spoke about the transformative power of suffering leading to spiritual awakening. When you go through profound pain, when your ego is shattered and your old ways of coping crumble, you're often left with a profound humility. You realize how little control you truly have over external events and how much you need to cultivate inner resources. This can open you up to deeper questions about life purpose, meaning, and your connection to something larger than yourself. It can lead to a more profound sense of interconnectedness, a deeper empathy for the suffering of others, and a greater appreciation for the fragility and preciousness of life. The dark night of the soul, as many spiritual traditions call it, is a necessary passage. And on the other side, a deeper, richer, more meaningful existence awaits. It's like enduring a long, harsh Canadian winter. While it's tough, it often leads to a profound appreciation for the vibrant, explosive beauty of spring. The ultimate revenge, living your unfolding truth. So what is Carl Jung's ultimate best revenge against the people who hurt you? It's not about hurting them back. It's not about proving anything to them. It's about becoming so whole, so healed, and so at peace that their actions no longer dictate your emotional universe. At the end of every revenge fantasy, deep down, there's a desire to be seen, to be heard, to be validated, and to be restored. But Jung's profound path teaches that the person you are truly waiting for is yourself. The voice you're longing to hear is your own. The justice you seek is ultimately internal coherence, a state where your inner world is no longer in chaos, where your values are aligned with your actions, and where you live in radical truth. When you embody this truth, when your inner world finds its balance, you become a different kind of human being. You listen more deeply to your own inner guidance. You react less to external provocations because your peace isn't dependent on them. You forgive not because it's easy or because they deserve it, but because it's efficient. It frees up your energy for living your fullest life. You stop bleeding for people who don't even bring bandages. You stop performing for an audience that wouldn't clap for your authentic self anyway. And best of all, you stop waiting. You're not waiting for them to change. You're not waiting for karma to strike. You're not waiting for the next opportunity to prove your worth. You are already here, present, grounded, and enough. That, my friends, is the final ultimate revenge. Not that they see it, but that you live it. You become who they said you couldn't be. You heal in places they hoped you'd stay broken. You love yourself in ways they never taught you or perhaps never even knew how to love themselves. You live your truth even if they still live their lie. You win not by defeating them, but by becoming someone who no longer needs to. You don't need an apology to heal. You don't need revenge to win. You just need to come home to yourself. Because the final revenge isn't in what they see, it's in who you silently, powerfully, and beautifully become. Remember Jung's profound truth. Wholeness, not vengeance, is your real power. If this journey through Jungian wisdom moved something in you, if it sparked a new perspective or a profound realization, please share it with someone you know who needs to hear this. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and drop a comment below. What resonated most with you? What insights are you taking away? I love hearing from all of you. Until next time, keep embracing your incredible wholeness. Keep shining your light, and remember you are already more powerful than they ever imagined. Are you ready to uncover the hidden truths about what really happens when someone hurts you? Because here's the thing, we've all been there. That gut-wrenching feeling when someone you trusted, someone you cared about completely, blindsides you. Maybe it was a buddy who gossiped behind your back at the local curling club, a family member who just totally dropped the puck on your big moment, or a partner who shattered your trust like thin ice in early spring. Your first instinct probably is pure outrage, a swirl of confusion, or just a deep, crushing despair that settles in your chest like a heavy snowdrift. You might even find yourself staring at your reflection, asking, "Why me? What in the world did I do to deserve this, buddy?" But what if I told you that the best way to deal with that deep sting isn't by trying to hurt them back? What if the path to true healing and unstoppable power isn't about getting even, but about something far more profound, something that makes them almost irrelevant in your emotional universe? We're talking about becoming so darn whole, so completely healed, and so deeply at peace that their actions just don't have the same hold over you anymore. This isn't just some feel-good fluff from a self-help book, folks. This is hardcore psychological truth straight from the brilliant, intricate mind of Carl Jung. Carl Jung, the renowned Swiss psychiatrist and founder of analytical psychology, didn't just explain why people hurt us. He actually laid out a complete roadmap, a way to transform that raw, agonizing experience into an unstoppable internal power. And in this deep dive, we're going to walk through exactly how you can do that Jungian style. So grab a comfy blanket, maybe a Timmy's, a large double-double with a maple dip for me, please. And let's dive right into the heart of it, eh? This is going to be a long one, so settle in. Part 1. The nature of hurt, what pain really reveals about you. When someone dings your emotional bumper, our immediate, almost primal reaction is often to point the finger. They did this to me. They're the problem. It's all their fault, buddy. And that's a totally natural, understandable human response. Our brains are wired for cause and effect, for identifying threats, for seeking blame. It's an automatic defense mechanism, a mental shield we throw up. But in the fascinating, often challenging world of Jungian psychology, pain is never ever just about what happened on the outside. It's always, and I mean always, a profound invitation to explore your inner world, to take a good, hard look in the psychological mirror. Jung's perspective isn't about blaming yourself for the initial hurt, not by a long shot. It's about recognizing that the way you experience that hurt, the intensity of it, the specific buttons it pushes within you, that's deeply personal. It's influenced by what's already simmering beneath your surface, like an underground spring just waiting to burst forth. Jung wasn't one to suggest we just slap a bandage on emotional pain and avoid it at all costs, like swerving wildly to miss a pothole on a remote logging road in northern Ontario. Quite the opposite, actually. He believed that pain often signals the very beginning of an inward journey, a powerful summons to confront the stuff in your unconscious that you've been consciously or unconsciously avoiding. Pain in the Jungian sense points directly towards your shadow, those disowned, rejected, or suppressed parts of your psyche that you've shoved into the dusty basement of your mind because they seemed unacceptable, too messy, or just plain inconvenient for the version of yourself you present to the world. What truly hurts us, what sends that sharp, piercing sensation right to our core, reveals exactly where we're still split, still divided, still feeling a bit unwhole. It shows us the cracks in our psychic armor, the vulnerabilities we've tried so hard to hide even from ourselves. And that, my friends, is the real starting line for true transformation. Pain isn't merely an unpleasant sensation, it's a diagnostic tool. It's a mirror of your psyche reflecting back not just the event, but your internal landscape in response to that event. So, to truly get a handle on the psychological nature of hurt, Jung would first ask you to pause, take a deep breath, maybe a few, like you're bracing yourself for a cold dip in a Canadian lake in May, and consider, what exactly does this pain say about you? Now, this isn't about blaming yourself for being a target, for being wronged, for experiencing what you did. Absolutely not. It's about a deeply reflective, courageous inquiry. When you feel that searing sting, that twisting knot in your stomach, or that crushing weight on your chest, ask yourself, who inside me is actually being hurt right now? Is it your ego, that part of you that's all about pride, image, and keeping up appearances? Is it your deep-seated sense of fairness? Feeling like someone cut in line when it was clearly your turn at the grocery store, but on a much, much grander soul-level scale? Or is it perhaps your tender, vulnerable inner child, that part of you that just wants to feel safe, loved, and unconditionally accepted, who is crying out for attention? Each of these internal parts will experience and process the hurt in wildly different ways, and understanding which part is activated is key to beginning the healing process. The ego and the shattered illusion of control. When our inner architect gets shook, your ego, that conscious part of you that navigates the everyday world, often believes it's totally in control, like the highly organized director of a meticulously planned community festival. It likes order, predictability, and a clear understanding of who's in charge. It creates a self-image, the I, that feels coherent and capable. But when someone wounds us, especially unexpectedly, that carefully constructed illusion of control can be completely shattered, leaving us feeling adrift, disoriented, and utterly powerless, like suddenly losing your GPS in the middle of a remote logging road. Suddenly, emotions we thought we had neatly tucked away, perhaps even convinced ourselves we were over, intense anger, profound sadness, gnawing shame, even raw primal rage, come rushing in like a spring flood. Your ego's usual defense is its neatly built dikes and dams are overwhelmed. Jung would argue that this emotional flood isn't the enemy, not at all. It's the message. It's your unconscious mind using hurt as a language, shouting, hey, there's something incredibly important here that you absolutely must see. Something you've been suppressing, rejecting, or just plain neglecting. The intensity of the emotional reaction serves as a signal, like a blaring fire alarm, indicating a deeper issue that needs your immediate attention. It's not just a transient discomfort, it's a psychic event that demands your engagement. Think of it like a physical bruise. If someone accidentally bumps your arm and it hurts unusually bad disproportionately, so that sharp, sudden pain signals that your arm was already bruised, or perhaps you bumped it on the fridge door earlier and didn't even consciously notice. The same principle applies emotionally. When someone's careless words, a perceived slight, or an outright betrayal cuts you deeply, it might be less about what they actually said or did in that exact moment, and more about the fact that the emotional wound already existed within you. Their actions simply acted like a fresh poke, reopening an unhealed area. It's illuminating, isn't it? The pain is less about the arrow and more about the wound the arrow landed in. The ego's default response to hurt, Jung believed, is strong resistance. It views vulnerability as a weakness, like showing up to a major hockey game without all your essential gear, skates, helmet, pads, the whole 9 yards. When we're hurt, the ego immediately demands retribution, or at the very least justice, control, or a way to restore its shattered sense of self-importance. I am not going to let anyone treat me this way again, the ego screams, stomping its foot like a toddler in a snowsuit. It wants to reestablish dominance, to feel on top again, to prove its strength. But beneath that righteous rage, beneath that outward defiance, is often a deeper, more primal fear, the fear of being seen as small or unworthy or utterly powerless. It's the fear of being exposed, of being perceived as weak, of the mask slipping. This is precisely why so many people confuse genuine strength with retaliation. They genuinely believe that getting revenge, or even just lashing out, is the only way to reclaim their dignity, to feel important, or to make themselves whole again. But Jung taught that the true work, the deep, meaningful, and genuinely empowering work, lies not in punishing the other person. It's about understanding why you gave them the power to wound you so deeply in the first place. The ego itself isn't inherently bad. It plays a crucial role in our daily functioning, allowing us to navigate the world and maintain a sense of identity. But it is undeniably defensive, protective, and prone to creating illusions. It shields us from chaos, from ambiguity, from life's inherent complexities, and especially from our own unconscious material. But hurt destabilizes the ego, and in doing so, it exposes the underlying psychic structure, your fundamental beliefs about yourself, your old wounds, your long-held memories, your deepest insecurities, your very sense of self-worth. And that foundational structure is where the real profound healing begins. It's like discovering the true bedrock beneath a shifting foundation. You can finally build something solid and resilient. The inner child and reactivated trauma, echoes from a northern past. A huge, and I mean huge, part of Jung's analytical psychology focuses on the idea of complexes. These are like emotional energy clusters, often tied to past experiences, especially from childhood. Imagine them as little emotional landmines buried deep in your psyche, often just beneath the surface. When someone hurts you in the present, you might not just be reacting to them or the immediate situation. You might actually be reacting to a complex that was activated from years, even decades ago. It's like a faulty wire that, when touched, sends a jolt through your entire system, not just the small area of contact. For example, let's say someone you know totally ignores your suggestion in a group meeting at work, or dismisses your opinion in a casual conversation at a potluck, and that makes you feel disproportionately angry or devastated, way more than the current situation probably warrants. Jung would urge you to go inward and ask, who was the first person that made you feel invisible or unheard? Often this question leads straight back to early caregivers, to a teacher who dismissed your ideas, to a sibling who constantly overshadowed you, or to significant figures from your childhood. That searing pain you feel in the present. It isn't really about the current situation. It's about the unresolved grief, the lingering sense of abandonment, the feeling of being overlooked, or the constant need for validation that stemmed from your formative years. It's an echo from the past reverberating loudly in the present. This is where the idea of the inner child beautifully intersects with Jung's work. The part of you that felt neglected or dismissed or rejected as a child still lives vividly within your psyche like a quiet echo or a frozen memory. It's not a literal child, of course, but a symbolic representation of your early emotional experiences and needs. So when someone hurts you now, they might be unknowingly touching that very same wound from long ago, reactivating the original pain and the original emotional response. You're not just reacting as an adult, you're reacting as that wounded child still longing for comfort, understanding, and acceptance. Revenge then becomes less about a conscious, rational response to the present moment and more about a desperate, unconscious defense mechanism to protect that vulnerable child inside from feeling that agonizing pain all over again. It's like trying to put up a barricade around a part of yourself that's constantly being threatened. But here's the kicker, and it's a crucial one. Healing doesn't come from external retaliation, from trying to get back at someone who poked the old wound. It comes from repairing that inner child, from giving them the love, the validation, the fierce protection they never received back then. It's about nurturing that little one within like a deeply compassionate and protective parent, reassuring them that they are seen, they are worthy, and they are safe right here, right now, in your presence. This internal repair work is what truly liberates you from the echoes of the past. It's like finally building a cozy, safe little cabin for that inner child away from the harsh elements, where they can finally rest and feel secure. The projection mechanism. Are you reacting to them or to you? The uncanny mirror. Jung's concept of projection is absolutely central to understanding why hurt cuts so incredibly deep and why we often find ourselves in baffling, repetitive relationship dynamics. Projection, simply put, is an unconscious psychological process where we disown a part of ourselves, something we find unacceptable, shameful, or too difficult to acknowledge, and then attribute it or unconsciously see it in others. It's our psyche's sneaky way of externalizing what we simply cannot bear to acknowledge within our own being. It's like having dirt on your own glasses, but honestly believing that the entire world, everyone around you, is hopelessly dusty or perpetually flawed. You literally see your own shadow in the other person, and because you haven't integrated that part of yourself, you judge it, you fear it, or you even lash out at it in the other person. When someone hurts you, Jung would strongly encourage you to pause and ask this profound question: am I projecting something onto this person? Do they somehow remind me of a part of myself I just can't seem to accept, or a quality I desperately wish I didn't possess? For example, imagine you're deeply, deeply hurt because someone you thought was a good friend calls you incredibly selfish. It might be because deep down you're absolutely terrified of being perceived as selfish. Perhaps you've gone out of your way for years, even to be overly generous, overly helpful, always saying yes to everyone, always volunteering for every community event,